Let's finish this session 73 in this third part, talking about energy transfers. Let's transfer it. In the first two parts of this session, we talked about magic, healing, Jesus, and now we're getting into the questions about energy transfer, which is going to be the last one. But we're going to start with last question that I didn't cover. It was kind of long, about healing. There's not much to say here in this question because Ra didn't comment much on it, but we're going to start with that. Again, healing is not a topic that I know much in depth, so it's just going to be overview. I don't have the knowledge in terms of spiraling energies and how they move through the body, as we explained before, and the rest of the dynamics that happens in terms of healing. I can only add in for simplicity because healing seems to be a lost science, if you will. Maybe we're recovering a little bit now, but I don't find any use right now in terms of how this works. In the same way that if, say, civilization would die in one of those apocalyptic disasters and so on, and then we were to rediscover science for some reason, and we are looking at science and saying, oh, look, we can make particles collide in a sort of accelerator, and we don't have the backbone for it. So while it is true, all of this science is available, is there, we just don't have the practice, we don't have the means. Maybe in the East they do, but again, it's a foreign science for us. And for the people that know it, then, these are people who, of course, can explain this way better than me. But the essence of it, it's always that healing has to do with the recognition of those patterns that do not serve you. And those patterns are usually associated with low energy centers. So that's the best I can describe it. In any case, let's move on to the next question that I have here, which is question 19. It's going to be a long statement by Don, and then Ra's going to explain a little bit. So let's dive into it. Don says in question 19, I'll make a general statement which you can correct. The way I see the overall picture of healer and patient is that the one to be healed has, because of a blockage in one of the energy centers or more, but we will consider one particular problem. Because of this energy center blockage, the upward spiraling light that creates one of the 7 bodies has been blocked from the maintenance of that body. And this has resulted in a distortion from the perfection of that body that we call disease, or a bodily anomaly, which is other than perfect. So far, I think, and again, I'm just going to make some pauses here because Ra's not going to comment on it, at least not directly. But I think this description is it's pretty good. As Don is explaining, he's just considering one specific problem with the energy centers, the upward spiraling light that creates one of the 7 bodies. I guess he's referring to this body, in, let's say, 3D body, has been blocked from the maintenance of that body. So it's a sort of blockage, let's just say, in our human form. There is energy going to create this appearance, and there is blockage. And that blockage resorts in a distortion other than the perfection of the body that we call disease. And that is just a body anomaly, right? So in essence, there's prana flowing 100%, and then there is blockages. And those blockages cause disease. Those blockages come from the lower energy centers, I would say. There may be other diseases that I'm not aware of, but I think the majority of, at least the ones that we suffer as humanity, come from the lower energy centers because they're related to our sense of separation, our perception of separation. So Don continues with the question saying, the healer, having suitably configured its energy centers, is able to channel light, the downward pouring light, through its properly configured energy situation to the one to be healed. If the one to be healed has the mental configuration of acceptance of this light, the light then enters the physical complex and reconfigures the distortion that was created by the original blockage. I'm sure that I've made some mistakes in that. Would you please correct me? So let's reread when Don says, the healer, having suitably configured his energy centers, meaning that the healer normally is crystallized, it doesn't have blockages, is able to channel light. Well, it already is channeling light. It's not like it goes into a trance and it channels light. Not the way I see it. It's a simple mundane task for the healer. That's why the healer doesn't feel like it's doing any work. The downward pouring light, that would be the violet ray that we talked about in the last video, through its properly configured energy situation, right, to himself, to the one to be healed. This seems pretty appropriate in the way that I visualize it, and I'll talk about it. If the one to be healed has the mental configuration of acceptance of this light, this is very important, of course. You can't be healed if you don't believe, right, in the healing that is going to take place. The light then enters the physical complex and reconfigures the distortion that was created by the original blockage. This sounds, I wouldn't say that it enters the physical complex, but it seems good enough to say, of course, that through the energy centers, or it's the whole mind, body, spirit complex that gets the light, right? It needs to go through all of them. That's why I wouldn't say it's the physical complex, but that's just my view. Then that obviously, if it's accepted, then it goes through the process of healing, which is, again, like I explained in the last video, if you have a friend comes to you and asks you for some advice and you give them advice and they don't accept it, then they will go back with their distortion. But if they do accept it and say, you know what, I've never seen it that way, thank you, wow, I feel so much alleviated, right? Alleviated is taking weights off your shoulder. So you feel good. And guess what? The distortion has been alleviated. That would be healing, even before there is a physical manifestation of illness or disease. And so Don says, all right, I'm sure I made mistakes. Please correct me. And Ross says, your mistakes were small. We would not at this time attempt a great deal of refinement of that statement, as there is preliminary material which will undoubtedly come forward. We may say that there are various forms of healing. In many, only the energy of the adept is used. In the exercise of fire, some physical complex energy is also channeled. Again, I don't know what the exercise of fire is. I think it's something that they used to perform, but I'm not familiar with it. And they're only saying that first, all right, your mistakes were small. We won't add details of refinement to your statement because there is preliminary material which will undoubtedly come forward. I'm sure what they mean with that too. I guess there is preliminary material for them to refine it that will undoubtedly come forward as they keep talking about it. So there is, for Ra to refine it and for Don to continue or its path, there is intervening material that they need to cover. And Don obviously has to discover that. Ra cannot give it to them. So that's it. We may say that there are various forms of healing. Yes, there are. We have talked about them. In many, only the energy of the adept is used. In many, only the energy of the adept is used. In the exercise of fire, some physical complex energy is also channeled. I suppose the one being healed is the one that uses physical complex energy there. But since I'm not familiar with the exercise of fire, I can only say that the energy of the adept is used in most cases, which Don, I believe, kind of described already. Satisfactory, I believe. Just my opinion. And it seems that Ra also doesn't see many mistakes. Ra says, finishing this answer, we might note further that when the one wishing to be healed, though sincere, remains unhealed, as you call this distortion, you may consider pre-incarnative choices. And your more helpful aid to such an entity may be the suggestion that it meditate upon the affirmative uses of whatever limitations it might experience. We would also note that in these cases, the indigo ray workings are often of aid. Other than these notes, we do not wish to further comment upon your statement at this working, because of the intervening material, of course. So, a couple of things here. This is another iteration of the same advice that Ra has given to what we perceive as an illness, what we perceive as a disease, may well be a configuration for the particular person. So in the case of Carla, arthritis and all these things seem to be a sort of tendency that she had for her to be, and this is Carla's reflection, it's not my interpretation, this is what Carla used to say. She figured out that this was almost like a traffic light, right? It gets to red, and she was like, okay, this is all I can do for today. I'm just going to rest and meditate on the Creator, or just contemplate or talk to people or whatever she could do. She wouldn't be feeling anymore like she was during the raw contact, saying that, oh, my limitations, they're causing so much trouble. They're not. So if you have limitations, perhaps it is good, like Ra says, meditate upon the affirmative uses of whatever limitations you might experience, because that is what's causing the frustration, is that you're not seeing the affirmative uses of those limitations. So if you can walk because you broke your ankle or whatever, well, I'm just giving now a simple example of something that happens, but I don't know, you lost your mobility in your legs, let's just say. You can't move your legs. So now you look at the affirmative uses of that. You can be sitting more, and you can be doing more stuff that you like doing. I don't know, sewing, is that the right word? Sewing, right? Just weaving, whatever it is. I have the word in Spanish in my mind. Tejer. Or writing. Maybe you like writing. You know, you've been denying yourself to write all this time. Whatever. It could be anything. Play the guitar, or who knows. You have to always meditate on what is it that this brought. You know, I might even give a super ridiculous example, but let's just say that I feel sick because I'm Spanish. I know this is ridiculous, but just bear with the simplicity of it. And I just don't accept. I mean, it's obvious that being Spanish is not an illness, but I feel it because my culture has said it, or somehow I have believed that being Spanish is just a terrible thing, right? And that's just what I am. You know, I configure myself that way, so I should get along with it, as opposed to just I don't know, hitting myself in the head for being born this way. Just a stupid example, but you see, you're born with this, you are this, so what's the benefit? Well, I speak Spanish, so I use that to my advantage, among other things. Yes, we have great food too. There are so many things. That's why I said it was a stupid example, but you get the point. Whatever it is that you have, just get with it. And look at, it's not get with it like, you know, just be a man or a strong woman, whatever it is now these days. Just be strong. It's not about that. It's about, seeing the strength in you because of it. And then they say, we could also note that in these cases, the indigo ray workings are often of aid. In these cases of when you're trying to get together with yourself. Well, what is indigo ray? It's a non-dual perspective of life. That's what it is. So when you stop seeing yourself as the victim, or, you know, the individual experiences reality, that helps a lot, of course, because you know that everything is perfect. There is no distortion. There is no paradox. Everything is fine, and you are part of that fineness, if you will. But let's move on. Question 20, Don says, it seems to me that the primary thing of importance for those on the service to others path is the development of an attitude which I can only describe as vibration. This attitude would be developed through meditation, ritual, and a developing appreciation for the creation or creator, which results in a state of mind that can only by me be expressed as an increase in vibration or oneness with all. Could you expand on and correct that statement? Ra gives a very short answer, but I will expand on this as much as I can. They say, we shall not correct this statement, but shall expand upon it by suggesting that to those qualities you may add the living day by day and moment by moment, for the true adept lives more and more as it is. That's just a bomb that Ra gave us there. Thank you. Okay, so let's go back to Don's question, which is not a question, it's just an affirmation. He says that the primary thing of importance for those on the service to others path, so all positive people who are in the process of recognizing their true being, that's what the positive path is. The path of enlightenment, the path of unity, the path of no separation. There is a, I call it a tension. It's an ego tension that exists in all students of the spiritual path, if I can even use that trite word or phrase. You see, this tension is to say that it's all well and good. You see, intellectually, we initially understand unity. We might even feel it experientially in a mystical experience or some flash of unity that we may have, because that's how it happens. It doesn't happen all at once. It's a flash. And from that flash, I remember listening to a Zen guy, American dude, and he is explaining how this moment of awakening was for him, which was a typical Satori. And he described it as if you've been looking at a scenario, right? And suddenly, the curtains, they move slightly open and close, and you get a sort of glimpse on what's behind it. And you say, whoa, there's something behind the curtain, you see? And what you saw was so impactful that you fall in love with it. And you cannot take, you see, your eyes are still looking at the stage, but you're drawn by what's behind it. And so the more you are drawn to it, of course, what's behind the stage will keep open it for you, you see? So this is how it happens. However, it's natural for people who have any sort of awakening, could be anything, to be overly attracted by what they saw. And what they saw was just a brief description of the mind that sort of articulated what it experienced. To give you an example, because I know I'm sounding a little bit of an abstract here. When you look at a tree, and your mind is trying to make sense of it. You see, and your mind will come up with a sort of explanation. But that explanation is never enough to explain the tree. And that's all well and good. You know, it's a way to transmit it to your fellows. You know, when you go back to the village and say, I saw a tree, such and such diameter and whatnot. You know, you come up with the intellectual. And now imagine if instead of going out for the tree, again, we just get lost in the description of it. So this is part of the overuse of the intellect to try to understand unity. And one of the downsides of this, I believe, is that we become infatuated with the description of the tree. In this case, we get we romanticize the description of unity, and we only experience it or explain it in terms of duality. which is unfortunate because it's one step, it's the closest step that we can get to unity. But we get stuck in it. And so this tension that I'm talking about is that the resistance to release that potential burden of believing that we live in separation. You see, in more clear terms, what is happening is that the individual is afraid of letting go of everything. I mean, it's wanting to let go of all those things that are negative, suffering and depressions and anxiety and so on, but it doesn't want to let go of all the good things, of all the pleasures and I don't blame people for that, because guess what? That's where the enjoyment is. You see, when you get more interested in what's behind the curtain, you have to let go of everything. You have to let go of yourself. What you believe to be needs to go away. And there is a huge resistance to that. I understand it. I felt it. I know what it feels. But you have to let go if you want to see what's behind the curtain. You have to get naked. That means everything has to go. So, why am I talking about this? Because this is the view of the service to others path, the path of unity, the path of that which is. You see, that's what Ross says. The negative path is the path of that which is not. The positive path is of that which is. That which is not is separation. That which is unity. And so in this desire to romanticize the view of unity in terms of duality, we get lost because we give too much validation to duality. And so things that I keep hearing often, mostly in my Spanish audience, I have to admit, because of so many reasons that I won't explain here, it's not necessary. But they're laden with concepts and too much metaphysical jargon that it's not easy to let go. And so there is this resistance to it and saying, no, we're here in the 3D because we're here to experience separation. We is populace, is not I. The self is here to perceive separation. You see, there is still a sort of attachment to the we, to the separation, to the manyness of us. This is a normal issue that people will encounter in their path to self-realization. It's not self as me, the personality. It is the one self that exists. That is self-realization. It's not you as my mission from the Galactic Federation. That's self-realization. That's just another story your mind tells you. And that's okay, you can play that. It's like children playing in the playground and making up all kinds of stories. We know that they're not that. They're not the cowboy and the police and the hero and the dragon and so on. All of that is just made up. But that is the purpose of having fun. Maturing is realizing that, okay, it's a character that I play, but I'm not that. And the biggest joke of all time is that we as an entity believe to exist. You see? So I want to talk about this tension that is created in the path of the adept. So Don keeps going on and saying, development of an attitude which I can only describe as vibration. This is the visualization that Don has, and I think it's beautiful. This attitude would be developed through meditation, ritual, and developing appreciation for the creation or creator, which results in a state of mind that can only be expressed by me as an increase in vibration or oneness with all. See, it's a very nice way to describe it. This is beautiful, in fact, when he says that this attitude, the attitude of service to others, you see, of wanting, the attitude that you took once you saw that there was a glimpse behind the curtain, that is developed through meditation. you can see meditation as that distraction that you have. You're not looking at the scene, at the characters anymore. You're just looking at what's behind the curtain, and you stay there. That's meditation. You see, you're going beyond whatever it is that's going on. The mind is playing. Characters are going about the stage and so on. You're interested in what's behind the curtain. Ritual. I wouldn't say ritual. Ritual has a very strong word. I think ritual is more discipline. I would call discipline. Whatever it is that you do, discipline. It could be yoga, it could be hanging from a bar, it could be, contemplating the river or the sky or whatever it is. That's ritualistic to me. And that invokes magic, by the way. In law of one language, magic. And a developing appreciation for the creation or creator, which results in a state of mind that can only be expressed as an increase in vibration or oneness with all. Beautiful. Yes, there is a developing appreciation for what's behind the curtain. That's what's creating the whole play. Everything that we see in the back, all the things, that's the interesting part. That's what we call consciousness. You get a glimpse of consciousness, pure consciousness. And that is a result of the mind, in a state of mind that can only be expressed as an increase in vibration. I wouldn't call it an increase in vibration, but oneness, yes. We can call it an increase in vibration. That's actually fine. Now, what does Ra says? They say, we shall not correct this statement, but shall expand upon it by a suggestion that to those qualities, very important here, this is the beautiful part that Ra says, you may add the living day by day and moment by moment, for the true adept lives more and more as it is. Beyond rituals, beyond meditation as a sort of activity, beyond activity, there is the present moment. And I know this sounds trite. I know this sounds redundant so much that we talk about the eternity of now, the power of the moment. But everything is there because we need to give up the self, the apparent self, the ego self, to enjoy the moment. You cannot enjoy the moment when you're thinking you are somebody, because you're thinking. And so you're drawing energy from the moment to create a persona. This is why the extension of the separate self goes into anxiety and collapse and depression. I'm saying the unstable separate self. The stable separate self goes into the negative path because it does believe that is definitely something out of this reality. The rest is just something that needs to be put in order. But you have to live here. You see, the living day by day. This is the beautiful part. This is the essence of non-duality. Is not living behind the curtain. That's a mistake. You don't go back there. It's just that you know that what's in the stage is not real. It's being enacted by characters or actors. And those actors are all in your head, in your mind. And you love it because you say, aha, this is it. This is what's playing out. It's not me. See? It's not me. Because that's something I cannot identify with. Nor can I identify, of course, with anything else. Especially what's coming out. What's coming out is just a flow of the universe. Just like the water is flowing in the rivers. You are flowing from the universe. Your thoughts, your actions, everything. You cannot ascribe and take credit for anything that is happening. You are the happening. And the happening cannot take control of that. There's only the illusion of it. And so there is the non-dual view of this. That is the true adept who lives more and more as it is. All right. Let's move to the next question. Question 21, Don says, thank you. Could you tell me of the number of possible energy transfers between two or more mind-body-spirit complexes? Is it very large or are there few inaudible? So we lost that part. It's not recorded. Ra is going to answer. The number is infinite, for is not each mind-body-spirit complex unity? Unique. Well, it is unity. It is, but is it not unique, right? So Don's question is about the number of possible energy transfers, and I bet he wanted to know categories, because that's what we're going to get next. The categories of energy transfers, and if we can talk about that, the number is infinite, of course, because yeah, I mean, can you tell me the different numbers of conversations that humans can have? They're infinite. So is the energy transfers. So this one is a no-brainer. I don't need to explain this. Let's go to the last question, actually. It's a long one, and the reason why I didn't finish last time. Question 22, Don says, could you define this statement? Energy transfer between two mind, body, spirit complexes. I feel like it's missing something, but I believe that's what Don said, right? Let me double check. Could you define? No, that's the last. No, that's it. All right. Could you define this statement? Energy transfer between two mind, body, spirit complexes. Ra says, this will be the last full query of this working. This entity still has transferred energy available, but we find rapidly increasing distortions towards pain in the neck, the dorsal area, and the wrists and manual appendages. The physical energy transfer may be done numerous ways. So, to begin, they say, we shall give two examples. Each begins with some sense of the self as creator, or in some way, the magical personality being invoked. This may be consciously or unconsciously done. Firstly, that exercise of which we have spoken, called the exercise of fire. Okay, so first, the exercise of fire. This is, though physical energy transfer, not that which is deeply involved in the body complex combinations. Okay, thusly the transfer is subtle, and each transfer unique in what is offered and what is accepted. At this point, we may note that this is the cause for the infinite array of possible energy transfers. Interesting. So, all right, let's try to dissect this as much as we can, right? So, we're gonna give two examples of physical. That was the first one. The physical energy transfer may be done numerous ways. They're going to give two examples. The first one is, again, an exercise that I'm not familiar with, the exercise of fire. And they say this is not that which is deeply involved in the body complex combinations. I'm not sure what that means. In the body complex combinations. I don't know if the exercise of fire was something that people did alone or with others. Because it seems that they say, though physical energy transfer, though there is physical energy transfer, it's not involving two body complex combinations or more. They say in the body complex combinations, probably referring to physical bodies together, but I'm not sure, so sorry. Thusly, the transfer is subtle and each transfer unique in what is offered and what is accepted. So I suppose it's a sort of, it's an exercise that does produce physical energy transfer without the touch, without physical contact, right? And it's subtle. The transfer is subtle and each transfer unique because of what is offered and what is being accepted. So, I mean, there's an infinite amount of things that can be offered, and then there is an infinite amount of possibilities of what can be accepted, right? That's why Ra says, at this point, we may note that this is the cause for the infinite array of possible energy transfers. So there is a possibility of physical. Now, let's talk about something that is a little bit more down our alley. Sexual energy transfer. Ra says the second energy transfer of which we would speak is the sexual energy transfer. The second energy transfer is the sexual energy transfer. Okay. This takes place upon a non-magical level by all those entities which vibrate green ray active. Not sure why it's not magical, non-magical, but I suppose it's not movement in consciousness, because it's just the feeling of the creator within itself, or within themselves, the people having sexual energy transfer. And with vibrating green, gray active. Okay. So it's not non-magical. I'll figure it out. The second, so that's it. There's more that they say here. I should have read the other paragraph. They say, it is possible, as in the case of this instrument, which dedicates itself to the service of the one infinite creator, to further refine this energy transfer. That's the sexual one. When the other self also dedicates itself in service to the one infinite creator, the transfer is doubled. Then, the amount of energy transfer is dependent only upon the amount of polarized sexual energy created and released. There are refinements from this point onward leading to the realm of the high sexual magic. Points of refinement to high sexual magic, which to me refer to the further energy transfers from green to blue to indigo and even violets. But what's the structure here? Well, we're talking about sex. Sex, yes. Regular sex. How does Rock call it? Intercourse. Okay, yeah, intercourse. So, sex has the possibility of transferring energy. It's actually two. Rod didn't talk about the negative one here, but there is a negative one, which is domination and wanting to be dominated and so on. And BDSM sort of thing that a lot of people enjoy. That is a sort of negative polarized energy transfer, you see, which is fine. Listen, I know people who love this BDSM thing, and that's their thing. And that's what they do. We tend to see, the negative as needs to be avoided. It's not your thing. It's not your thing. But if it's your thing, it's your thing. The creator is experiencing itself. So, in any case, we're not talking about that here with Ra. They're talking about the energy transfer that is positive, because that's the one that is heart to heart. What does that mean? I love you, you love me, we have sex? Yes. But in terms of metaphysics, that means that you no longer see yourself as something or someone who needs from the other, but wants to give. And in that giving is that pleasure of giving, or the pleasure of giving pleasure. So at least that would be the minimum requirement for sexual energy transfer, heart to heart. There are more stuff that I'm not going to talk about here. There are other, look up in my channel, energy transfer or sexual energy transfers. Session 31 or so, session 26 has it too. Just look it up. They're there. I talked about that. And the whole point is that there are different transfers depending on where the entity is vibrating, right? So the key points here is that in the case of like Carla and Jim, who were having this sort of sexual energy transfer, when they're both in service of the one creator, or they feel that way, then it doubles, of course. Now, what is this, the service of the one creator? Do you go into the act of sex thinking about, I'm doing this for the one creator, I'm doing this for the one creator, not for me? No, this is a natural thing that is flowing. I can tell you by experience that, I have this, I can't really describe it. It doesn't only happen there. It's happened in numerous portions of my day. It could be just when I drink something, coffee or whatever, when it's at that moment and you're thinking, or whatever it is, I'm looking at somebody's eyes, or it's not a particular moment, it's just that feeling that this is being lived by the self. See, and I am that aperture of the self. This is just a limited perception for the creator to appreciate distance and time and things and events and all of this, and it's just marvelous. It's like when you play a video game and you say like, wow, All of this is a simulation for me to experience monster killing or baking pies. I mean, there's all sorts of game now. But it's a sort of appreciation as opposed to being automatic in the game. Just doing things. A lot of these games now on cell phones are so addictive because of that, because you're not really enjoying. You're doing things because it's almost like an extrapolation of work. You're so used to work that you go into this and it's like, oh, I gotta do this, I gotta do this. I've seen people like this. They don't seem to enjoy the game. And I think that's a window to what people are doing, in regular life. They're not appreciating that they're alive. What do you mean I'm alive? Of course I'm alive, and I need to maintain myself alive, so I need to go and work and eat and do this and whatever. You see? So an appreciation, a service to the one infinite creator is to, in other words, to forget that you exist and that this is just happening and you are that happening. I don't know. I can go on for a while explaining this, but when you have this feeling, and of course in sex, to feel this and know it, it's something else. So that at least is transfer of heart to heart. Then, of course, the amount of energy transfer is dependent upon the amount of polarized sexual energy created and released, which is, to me, that difference that occurs between the male and the female. There is a point of contention here that only biological male and biological female are allowed to have this transfer. To tell you the truth, I have no idea. I mean, I've heard both cases. It is only biological. It is just that negative, positive that we both have, and homosexual energy transfer is possible. I don't care to talk about that, except for saying, how do you feel at the end? You see? How do you feel? That's what Ross says. How do you feel? You feel that there was love, that you gave, all of this. It doesn't matter. The sexual energy was moved. So how do you feel afterwards? That's the key point. There are refinements from this point onward leading to the realm of the high sexual magic. By the way, I can think of so many examples of homosexuals having sex and being much more connected than heterosexual sex. So if that helps. It's not about the physical, it's about how you feel, really. What do you think? You are the creator of all of this. How do you feel when you have sex? What's happening? But truly, be honest. How do you feel? Anyhow, let's move on. Ross says, in the realm of the mental bodies, there are variations of mental energy transfer. Mental energy transferred. Why not transfers? In the realm of the mental bodies, there are variations of mental energy transferred. Okay. This is, again, dependent upon the knowledge sought and the knowledge offered. The most common mental energy transfer is that of the teacher and the pupil. The amount of energy is dependent upon the quality of this offering upon the part of the teacher as regards the purity of the desire to serve and the quality of information offered, and upon the part of the student, purity of the desire to learn, and the quality of the mind vibratory complex which receives knowledge. My God, huge paragraph. All right, so in the realm of mental bodies, so our mind complexes, there are variations. Of course, once again, Ross says this is dependent upon the knowledge sought and the knowledge offered, much like healing. Healing depends upon the crystallized healer and the intention or the desire to be healed, to accept this healing by the one being healed. But in this case, we're talking about mental energy transfer, and the most common one is teacher and pupil. Now, teacher, let's put me as an example because you're listening to this as a sort of student because you say so, not because I say so. Or you could be saying, I'm just listening to you because you sound fun, and that's okay. So the quality of the energy transfer will be dependent upon how much open you are to receive this, and the purity, of course, in which I speak. If my purity is not enough, if I have some hidden motive, and you're not aware of it. Or maybe you are aware of it, and that's just a block. You say, hey, Gabe, stop brainwashing me. You discern that. You're cunning enough to see my subliminal message here. Then you'll pick it up. You see, my subliminal message is stop suffering. Come off it. You're not suffering. You're enjoying this. You are the one. Stop kidding me. I love this. I really love this. The amount of energy is dependent upon the quality of this offering upon the part of the teacher as regards the purity of the desire to serve and the quality of information offered. So that corresponds to me, say, me giving the information. Now I can give you that the quality of this, let me be completely straight, it depends upon my own biases, you see. So the purity of my teaching will be dependent on my own biases. I'll give you some of my own biases. I truly do not care about many of the metaphysical jargon that is out there. There is a lot of mumbo jumbo that is thrown around about law of manifestation and using consciousness to create your own reality and blah, 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 blah. That always has caused a sort of cringe in me. And I just don't like it. It's too simple. And the thing is that I see, there's a truth to it, but it's very basic. It's like child's talk. I'm not being despective in any kind. I'm not being pejorative with my words. I'm just saying that it's never resonated with me. I want to see the truth behind that. I don't want to get lost in the actors and their characters. You see, so that's my bias. And so I tend to speak in a more direct way because that's how I learned. The only way I can teach is the way that I learned. It's my own experience. I can't give you, books and things to read because I don't know what you're going to interpret there. I can only give you my experience, and I can only defend my own experience. And that experience is that I don't see separation. I used to see it, and I enjoyed it. But there's no separation anymore. And there's so much in there. Everything is in there. So that's my bias. I don't care about many topics, and that's the quality of the information. However distorted it can be, that's what I have to give. Now, upon the part of the student, the purity of the desire to learn and the quality of the mind vibratory complex, which receives knowledge. Two things that come up here. The first one is, of course, you need to be open, right? You need to say, yes, I am open to your teachings, whatever it is. And if you tell me that I am an ego, I will swear that I look into it. See, that's it. My heart tells me, Gabe, that you speak truth about this thing of unity. I do feel it, but I don't see it. You've come with an open mind, you see? That's the quality of the mind. The purity of the desire to learn. I don't care. Which you can see can be, of course, prey for those who want to say, oh yeah, I'll teach you all my things. And this is why I always caution people to say, I'm not teaching you in the sense of lessons. I'm teaching you as a show. I'm showing you. I'm not teaching you a dogma. I'm showing something that is already within you. That's what we call the direct path, and I love it. That's my course, by the way, description, if you want to take it. The direct path goes straight into your experience. It doesn't go with any of the nonsense that this many books and this many philosophies and all they have said in the Kabbalion thousands of years ago and so on. Yeah, that's cool. We can validate all of that once we go straight into our experience and realize that there is no separation. There's only you. And you is me. If I am I because I am I, and you are you because you are you, then I'm not I and you're not you. I love that. So true. I'll leave you that riddle. If you don't know it already, go back and listen to it again. So now the second part is the quality of the mind vibratory complex which receives knowledge. Now, what does it mean? No matter how much you want to learn, depending on your mind vibratory complex, which you should just, hey, it's what you have, right? Depending on that, you will receive quality information. This is the reason why, if you listen to me or anybody else who likes to talk about unity, right now, you'll say, thank you. Let's assume you're 100% open and discerning of any sort of distortion that I may have. So you pick, what resonates and reject what doesn't. Let's say you're there and you say, wow, yes, I got it all. I understand, right? This is beautiful. But then you come back and you listen to me again, or read the raw material, or listen to your favorite speaker or whatever, and you say, my God, I've never heard this before. Even though I've heard this lecture or seminar or whatever. That is because your mind complex has changed and now you can receive more knowledge. See, this happens all the time. Read a book again. It's a normal thing that happens. You expand your mind towards a specific topic or view. And the more you listen to it, the more you learn. The more you read it, the more you understand. And it's not because you're getting more knowledge. It's the same knowledge, but only because in you, the landscape has opened. And now you say, oh, I have room now for more fauna or flora. And it just broadens. It's beautiful. So that is the energy transfer of learn teaching, my friends. Next part, Ra says, is one of the penultimate paragraph that I have. Ra says, another form of mental energy transfer is that of the listener and the speaker. When the speaker is experiencing mental, emotional, complex distortions towards anguish, sorrow, or other mental pain from what we have said before, you may perhaps garner knowledge of the variations possible in this transfer. Oh, it's beautiful. So, I didn't plan this, I swear. Maybe it's just convenient for me to use the same example that I've been giving. Okay. Remember how I said in the last video and in this one that there is the possibility of healing when a friend comes to you and you listen to them and you give them advice. Well, take away the advice and just the listening portion of it. I'm sure you've done this with friends, family, and so on. You just listen to them. No judgment. Just listen to them. And even ask them questions. Well, how does that make you feel? And, what happened afterwards? Show interest. You see, the power of listening is much bigger than talking. If we were all to be silent because we can listen to each other and we don't want to talk, there is so much knowledge in there. There is pure wisdom being taught there in the silence. Intellectual people would frown upon that and say, what are you talking about? No, we need to talk. We need to discuss reality and the description of the tree and blah, 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 blah. Okay, that's fine. We have been building a society from that point of view. How's it working out? Let me know in the comments. You see? So, don't let me know, please. I think we all know. But yeah, leave some comments. It helps the algorithm. So, another form of this. See, I'm such a selfish man. I confess. But if you're listening to this on Spotify or any other platform, you can't leave a comment. You have to come to YouTube, in which case you'll also help the algorithm and help this channel grow, which hasn't for 3 years almost already. We only have 2,000 subscribers. I don't care. I do this because I love it. This is a side effect of what I love doing. All right, when the speaker is experiencing mental, emotional, complex distortion towards anguish, sorrow, or other mental pain. So basically, when your friend is talking to you and saying, I'm suffering, anguish, sorrow, and all of these emotions, then you may perhaps garner knowledge of the various possible in this, the knowledge of various variations possible possible in this transfer? My God, I can't read. Well, it's simple. The more you listen to your friend, or the different ways in which you can listen to your friend, then you see the possible transfers of this. There is much healing happening in the friend when you're listening. So that's it. Just listening. That's another form of energy transfer. Again, use examples of what you have experienced with people. You know how much better they feel once you listen to them, and it's not this back and forth and so on. You get the idea. Last paragraph, last part. Ross says, the spiritual energy transfers are at the hearts of all energy transfers, as a knowledge of self and other self as creator is paramount, and this is spiritual work. The varieties of spiritual energy transfer include those things of which we have spoken this day as we spoke upon the subject of the adept. Are there any brief queries before we leave this working? I have none. I'm sorry for the stupid jokes. Anyhow, spiritual energy transfers are at the heart of all energy transfers, because what is being transferred is the question. What is this energy? It's intelligent energy. Where is it coming from? Spirit, or what we call the self. That's why Ra says, as a knowledge of self and other self as creator is paramount. And this is spiritual work. Any energy transfer is spiritual work. The varieties of spiritual energy transfer include those things of which we have spoken this day as we spoke upon the subject of the adept. I'm not sure why they had to include that, because the variety of spiritual energy transfer is, again, infinite. And it will include, of course, what they have spoken about the adept and everything, healing, magic, and so on. And yeah, the adept being the one that is... The adept is the dissolving ego. Let me put it that way. The dissolving ego, that sensation of, I don't want to be this anymore. That's the adept. The adept is born in a time of crisis sometimes. And so you go on to the path of self-realization, because your apparent self failed you, right? The ego failed you, and you no longer trust it. So you want to find peace. The true trust in life is in the one infinite creator, the self, you. So all right, that's spiritual transfers. It's everywhere. Conclusions. Talking about energy transfers, I'll talk about that. You see, one thing that we need to pay attention to is that energy transfers are of all kinds, as Ross said, and it's dependent upon the people that want to interact with each other. You see, the people that want to interact with each other are interested in specific topics. As I mentioned, I believe that there is a lot of interest, especially with this fourth density shining. There's a lot of interest in energies and crystal balls and tarot reading and so on. All of that is happening right now because people love it. People are appreciative of this sort of stuff. That's okay. And there is other energy transfers, just you can call it mundane stuff, economy and the conspiracies, and that's fine. Then there is the, people getting together in a party and hanging out. That's energy transfer there too. Everything is energy transfer. One thing that I want to advise or alert that is just toxic for the self, for you, for the harmony that you are, is the belief that there are some energy transfers that are better than others. This is like saying, there is better teaching than the other. There is just appropriate teachings for the people involved. You see, some people are not ready. That's okay. That means that they are not interested. Period. It's not people, it's the creator not interested in what you have to teach, in what you have to talk about. That's okay. look at the ego sometimes get in the way and say, well, people should be listening to this. People should wake up more so we have a better world. The reason why the world is not better is because you think it's not. Whatever the reason you think it's not, that's why the world is not better, because you believe that. It's so simple. Stop believing it. It's like that joke. There are two jokes, and I'll tell the Spanish one. That's the one I know, where the guy comes to the doctor and says, "Hey doctor, I touch here and it hurts, and I touch here and it hurts, and I touch here and it hurts." And the doctor examines it and says, "Yeah, it's your finger. That's what's broken. Your finger's broken. Stop touching." All right, I'll give the English one that I heard from Alan Watts, saying, the guy goes to the doctor and says, "Doctor, every time I shake my leg, it hurts." The doctor says, "God damn it, stop shaking it." Stop believing that the world is wrong. Everything will be fine. But of course, I know we have to go into, why do I believe the world is wrong? I have conditions. These conditions I got from my parents. Oh, they are the ones that are the culprit. And you have to go through the whole process. Sometimes, when you wake up to reality, you realize that it's just your mind telling you this story, and you say, "Oh no, just the mind. Don't pay attention to the mind. Pay attention to reality." So that's it. That's my spiel today. Got to the hour, finished the session. All good, all well. I don't know what's on session 74. Perhaps more talk about tarot. No, not yet. I think we don't get to the tarot, but we'll see. We'll see what we have left. Thank you for listening this far. If you're here, that means you're interested in my teachings. So how about that? Listening to people, all of that, that's what I do. I have a direct path, which is the methodology that I use simply to show you why your life is fine, and that's what I do. When people ask me, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" I just say, I remind people that their life is perfectly fine. They usually come to me asking, I have issues, and I tell them, well, you're not looking at them from the correct angle. And I give that angle. I help them with that. So that's what I do. Check the description if you want to get involved with what I do, because this is my life. This is what I do, and I love doing it. So with nothing else to say, check the description. I love you, my other self, and I'll see you in session 74.